what's happening in season 5.
Oh, there you go. I can't wait to tell you. Well, since you asked, yeah, I mean, season 5, we always knew that the creator had decided that season 5 was going to be it for him. He told me season 1 when I first got the job, it was only going to go 5 seasons. And I was hoping that with the success of the show and, you know, him enjoying working with us and vice versa, that it was going to change. But unfortunately, he's really, really stuck on ending it the way he wants it to end. And I get it, you know, from a creator like himself who's been so successful, he wants to go out on a high note. He doesn't want to go out when fans are tired of the show, and when we lose creativity and start repeating the same thing over and over again. I would watch if I wasn't on it. It wasn't the type of show that you had to watch every week because it was a serialized show on network television that if you miss one week, it's okay, because the next week it's gonna be another story. And I personally like shows that you have to watch every single week, where I'm like waiting all week long and I'm listening to podcasts about the show and I'm arguing on like social media about what's gonna happen to this character. So, I got to a point in my career where I feel like I was starting to lose the passion, and I was doing it for money. And so I made that sacrifice, and I said, Lord, please keep my bills paid until I find the right script. And I did a movie called Detroit in that time that wasn't a lot of money, but it told a story of the 1967 Detroit riots, a story I never knew of before that time. That was something that I felt was important to tell. Know about a period in history that we didn't know about. It was shot by Catherine Bigelow. If you haven't seen it, very powerful movie. She's a very powerful director. She did the movie Hurt Locker, and she won the Oscar the year that we were nominated for the Oscar for Avatar, and she was nominated for Hurt Locker. She beat us, you know? And here's the funny part. She was a director of Hurt Locker. Her ex-husband, James Cameron, was the director of Avatar.
Wow.
So it was like,
oh yeah, I remember that year.
Were up for the Oscar that year.
I remember that year. Yeah, yeah.
So I wasn't a big fan of hers when she beat us, but I was a big fan of her work, and I got to work with her, and she's one of the best directors I've ever worked with. That to me was an experience that I can't even put into words, man. She was magic on set. And then I did another movie, small independent movie, that talked about human trafficking. I was reunited with Paula Patton, who I did this movie called Jumping the Broom with. If you like romantic comedies, it's my first and only romantic comedy, Jumping the Broom, and we were reunited to do this film. And it was about human sex trafficking, and it was a very powerful movie, independent, but I felt like it was an important topic to talk about. I had no idea how bad human sex trafficking was until I did that film, and I got into it and did my research and learned that, you know, you'll be on the freeway and you see 18-wheelers, there could be an 18-wheeler filled with human beings.
Yeah.
And that's something we never think about.
That's the scary part. Yeah.
It's one of the biggest sex trafficking ports, and Sacramento, California, the capital of California, where the governor resides, is one of the biggest sex trafficking hubs on the West Coast. These are things I had no idea about. So I was able to do some work that paid the bills, kept me going, but it also kept me looking and hungry for the next series that I was in. You know, Eric Kripke, the showrunner, was sitting in the room, and I was adamant with him. I just went in and I just went for broke, because I loved the sides that I read so much that I said, I'm gonna put my own little salt and pepper, little seasoning on it. I did that. He loved it. He was laughing. He was like cackling in the room. ooh, I got one, you know? And it just so happened the one that I got was the creator. I got the right one.
Right.
So yeah, that was how I came across Mother's Milk and the boys. And it was a very old school audition process. It wasn't like I was some superstar and just got the role and I don't know if I'm gonna do it. Nah, man, I was looking, I was hunting for a good TV show, and I fought for that role and got it.
I think we're going to let Miles Morales ask you a question real quickly. I do have a follow-up question to that.
How you doing? Glad to have you here. I'm Xavier. I just had a question regarding acting. This is a passion of yours. It's a passion of mine as well. I just wanted to know what skill set did you develop to really get the ball rolling, really?
I would say study life. Study life. A lot of what I bring to my acting is instinctual. Because a lot of the times, the decisions and the choices that we make are not on the page. But the more you can bring a feeling of reality to the character, because you gotta remember, at least in an audition setting, they're watching this and listening to the same exact words 500 times. Everything starts sounding the same at the door. What are you gonna bring different? How are you gonna make it memorable? How are you gonna make them remember you out of 499 other people that they've auditioned? Avatar, over 3,000 people worldwide auditioned for Sute, the role that I play. How are you gonna make it different? You know? When I auditioned for Sute, they didn't give us the material to study and to prepare. They just said, show up, your audition is at 11. You can come before 11, the office is open as early as 9. So if you want to come early and study it, you can, but we can't send it to you. You got to give your license or passport. We'll give you the audition sides, and when you're done, you got to give us back the sides to get your passport or your license back. So it was that under lock and key. It was very, very serious. And back then, they weren't really asking for cell phones, but I'm sure now, because you could just screen shoot it, they would probably take your cell phone too. I auditioned for that role, and when I walked into the audition room, I learned the lines, I studied it, I felt it, it gave me almost like a gladiator, that character gave me like a gladiator feel, are you not entertained? You know what I'm saying? I was like, I'm about to kill this. Because I love Gladiators, one of my favorite movies. And I always wanted to play, a Braveheart type of character, someone who's liberating his people from oppression, from a conquering force that's way bigger and stronger and more powerful than you, but what you have is heart. And that's what I got to play in Avatar. The conquering force were the humans, who to us were aliens, trying to take our land, to mine it, and to steal our natural resources. And we don't have the machinery that they have or the robotics that they have. But what do we have? We have heart, and we're going to defend our home. And so that was the energy that I brought to the role. When I walked in the audition room, the casting director said, okay, you ready? I said, yeah. She said, all right, this is the one rule. You can't speak English.
That's great.
I said, what? She said, you can't speak English. I don't care what language you speak. You can say your ABCs and your 1, 2, 3s. You can make up a language. She said, but you can't speak English. Which meant, they didn't tell us we were going to be speaking another language, because they ended up, once we got the role, they taught us Navi, the other language. But what they wanted to see is, can this person portray the lines without using words? And as actors, words is one of our weapons. I was like, all right, I was like, cool. She's like, you want to go back out and come back in? I said, nah, I'm ready. Now, I had just come back from doing a film in Russia. I was supposed to be in Russia for 3 weeks. Little did I know, the head of the studio was also the head of a mob family in Russia. And things work a little different once you get over to Russia. So what was a 3-week job turned into a 3-month job. And you can't complain. You can't complain. So while I was in Russia, and I had a great time in Russia. I had a fantastic time in Moscow. I didn't think I was gonna have a good time. It ended up, my hotel was next to the US Embassy, and one day I ended up at a Russian hip hop club, and I see some brothers with some tight fades. And I'm like, because I was looking like I had just gotten out the jungle. Like my hair was afroed out, it was terrible, I couldn't find a haircut. And I saw some brothers looking sharp, and I walked over there and I was like, trying to speak the little broken Russian that I was learning. And I was like, you know, haircut. And dude was like, what are you talking about, bro? I was like, what? And I was like, you're American? He's like, yeah, I'm American, I'm from Brooklyn. So these brothers were Marines, and they did security at the embassy. Come to find out, they were literally my next door neighbors the whole time.
Right.
So I ended up with a crew of brothers in Moscow, of all places, and they were barbers. So now I'm getting a haircut, I got a crew, and because I spent so much time on my own before I met them, they didn't speak Russian, but I spoke a lot of Russian at that point, because I was learning it just to be able to survive. So I ended up becoming their translator. Everywhere we go, I'd be the translator for the Marines. And in exchange, I'd work out with them in the mornings. I was over at the embassy every day, doing push-ups and sit-ups and getting in Marine Corps shape. They all knew who I was from the movie Jarhead anyway. So it helped. They were like, yo, man, you're that guy, you know? And so I say that to say that when I went into my audition for Sute, I was able to take Russian, I was able to take Spanish, which I learned my whole life from my family. I was able to take Korean from having studied Korean martial arts my whole life. And I made a hodgepodge. I made a mix of all 3 of those languages. And I threw some Korean in there. I threw some Spanish in there. I threw some Russian in there. And I did the audition.
Mm.
I did that audition in June. Never heard again, a word again. I moved on with my life. I didn't get the role, but I did a damn good audition. And then in November, out of nowhere, my agent calls me and he says, yo man, I don't know what you did, but James Cameron is ranting and raving about you, and you're one of 3 people that are up for this role in the entire world after they auditioned over 3,000 people. He said he wants to meet with you, and he wants to film you doing more scenes. You know, so what got me that role? Was it acting, or was it life? It was life. That 3 weeks that turned into 3 months, I didn't waste it. I learned Russian. And at the time, I didn't know why I was learning Russian. I thought I was just learning just to be able to order some food. But it ended up helping me get a job that really elevated my career. So, never waste opportunities. As an actor, you're always learning something, you're always recording something, you're always studying people. You know, you can imitate people. I might play a character one day and remember how you were standing and messing with your coat, and I might do that in a scene. Or I might sit the way he's sitting to the side, you know, holding his hand like this. I might do that. It's studying character, and it's pulling little nuggets from everybody that you meet along the way. Or watch in other movies. you always hear about characters actors borrowing from other actors. Very common. Because once you take it and do it, it's yours. It's not theirs anymore. It's different. Unless you're imitating it. Don't impersonate.
Like a sponge, you gotta absorb all the
You
knowledge.
gotta absorb.
Be resourceful.
And that comes from life. That comes from life, man. You can't learn that in an acting class. Now, what an acting class will do is it'll teach you how to take that life and put it on camera in front of the lens properly. Because there are tricks. Don't get it twisted. There are tricks to making a performance stronger. Make it more memorable. There are tricks. But the core performance, that comes from life. And the actors that typically you feel the most from, usually are the ones that have gone through the most stuff, have lived a lot. All right, that's it.
Thank you. Answer all my questions.
Yeah,
That was
thank
awesome.
you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nice sweater.
Thank you.
Yeah, super cool.
Going kind of off of that, I wanted to know what role you played that felt the most natural to you, like kind of fit you like a glove.
Mother's Milk.
Really? I was thinking that.
Yeah, Mother's Milk, first of all, I've always been the guy that my friend circle comes to when they need advice. I've always been the group dad. Y'all don't have to do that. Nah, let's not jump off the bridge today. You know? Let's not race that Lamborghini right now. You know? This is ice on the road. Let's wait till another day. You know, I've always been the little voice of reason in my group. And I am very neat and very orderly. There are a lot of similarities between Mother's Milk and I. And as the creator of the show has met with me and we've gotten to know each other, he's taken a lot of Lazisms and put them into the character because they're very, very similar in our DNA. Our DNAs are very similar. Mother's Milk obviously is an exaggerated version. I ain't killing people. But I do like, one thing that I was able to infuse into the character is his relationship with his daughter. I felt that that was very, very important, very necessary for the world to see. I think that deadbeat dads, and especially black fathers, don't get enough, I'm not saying deadbeat dads don't get enough credit. What I want to say is dads, especially black fathers, don't get enough credit for being present in their kids' lives. And a lot of times, when we see a parent's absence, we don't understand that sometimes it's because they might be working to support them or to help them. In my case, I was raised by a single mom, and I was a latchkey kid, but my mom worked 3 jobs, you know, to keep the lights on. So she wasn't home a lot. So I wanted to show how that relationship existed, that he was doing everything for his daughter, that his daughter is his motivation and his reason for what he does and who he is. And it was really important for me to show that in a very genuine but authentic way.
And it comes through very well.
Thank you. Yeah, and shout out to Eric Pickey who took that and ran with it, you know, and made sure that it was there in the story. You know, so we've had the opportunity to mold this character. You know, season 2, like, he's basically bathing in aloe vera hand sanitizer. You know, when I went to meet with him and I emptied out my backpack, one of the things that I had in my backpack when I met with Cricky was wet wipes and aloe vera hand sanitizer. And what ends up in the script? Wet wipes and aloe vera hand sanitizer. You know what I'm saying? So anything that he can take from you and put it into the character, he will, but that can also work against you. because he also found out I hate being covered in stuff. And ever since then, I've been covered in stuff every season. We're in episode 1 so far. I haven't been covered in anything, so that I will say about season 5. That's all I can say. But I'm sure that before the season ends, I will be covered in something. But you know, you get a real performance. You know, again, life. You know, he's putting me in a situation that I genuinely don't want to be in, and I really don't like. You know, so I'm not really acting. You know, I'm there saying the lines, but I'm really not enjoying this shit. You know, and you get a good performance from that. So, yeah, I would say Mother's Milk is probably the one that I enjoy playing the most because, you know, between us, I'm getting paid to kind of be myself on camera.
Works out.
Yeah. All right. Come on now. Don't be shy. Here we go. Step on up, Ahsoka.
I have 3 questions, if that's okay.
Let's do one, and then you can come back and ask the other.
I know you went to school for investment banking. My best friend actually graduated from Howard. How did that transition for you for acting?
So I studied marketing and a little bit of finance, mostly marketing at Howard. And I would say that one thing that it definitely taught me early on in life was that money ain't gonna make me happy. Because I thought that I was going to first go to Wall Street, become rich, and then pursue acting. That was my plan. Once I got there and I saw these people who had the money and the jobs that I wanted to have one day in order to become quote unquote rich, I realized that I wouldn't be happy. And I realized that money doesn't make you happy. And I realized that those jobs are just titles, but you know, are you really like doing something that really means something to you? It might mean something to them, and God bless them. But I learned very early in my career, I don't want to be here. You know, like I'm glad I got that out the way early because it allowed me to pursue acting 100% without thinking, what if? What if I would have stuck on Wall Street? What if I would have stayed there? What if I would have just like, you know, really gave it my all? I got there, I was working 90 hours a week. I was going in on a Monday, not leaving until Wednesday, you know, sleeping on under my desk, because it was so much work that I can't humanly possibly finish it. And the minute you start like halfway down, they bring another stack of books this big that you have to work on, and I hated it. And I was like, no thank you. Y'all can keep this and be stressed out and not enjoying life. I'm gonna go this way and be broke.
But I'm be happy.
I know, but I'm gonna be broke and smiling.
That's why I did finance.
Yeah, and I was broke for a very long time, and it was not easy, and it was hard, and I did a lot of stuff to survive, you know, but I stuck with it. And that's what I tell everybody, you know, you're gonna have to do things, when you pursue a career in art, you're gonna have to do things to make up for what the art doesn't provide financially. But if you stick to it long enough, eventually you will gradually do better and better and better until the art can sustain you. You know, I kind of compare it to a child. You know, when a child is born, you need to give it 100% in order for the child to survive. You know, give it milk, give it food, give it sustenance, teach it how to walk, how to talk, teach the baby all these things. But eventually, they'll get to the point one day where they can walk and talk on their own and survive and get a job and make money. And that's kind of like how our careers are babies when we first launch them. or our businesses when we first launched it. But in time, you grow up and it can then take care of you. Yeah.
What's going on, brother?
What's up, man?
All right, so I'm a big fan of The Boys, the comic, right, before the show came out. And I was just curious, did you read any of it during or after or before?
Yeah, once I got the job, they sent us the materials to read and to study and so I checked out MM in the comics. There were things that were very dated in the comics.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I knew I had to switch them up. There were also things that I did not like that were happening in the comics. A lot of it tended to be with his relationship with his daughter.
Absolutely.
And I didn't feel like that was the image that I wanted to continue to push into the ecosystem. I wanted to show a positive image and relationship between a young
Father.
black girl
And her father.
Her father.
Yeah.
And so we talked about that. I met with the creator about that, and I let him know what I liked, and I let him know what I didn't like. And he was very, very open because at the end of the day, all of our characters are imperfect.
Of course.
They're all dealing with something while being tormented with something else. And it's all about finding out what story do we want to tell. So yes, I read the comics. I tried to base the character as close to the comics as possible, but I also felt like there were certain areas that we could improve and update. In those areas, I feel like we did a pretty good job at it.
The only reason I asked is because I hated your character.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like now, like you're one of
Tell
my
me what you didn't like about him.
Pretty much what you said, that he was, I mean, if y'all don't know, he's a terrible dad in the books.
Yep.
He doesn't really listen to anyone, including like Butcher, nobody. And everything that he does kind of leads to something bad happening later.
Yeah.
He was impulsive, all that stuff. And in the book, in the show, you're the voice of reason, which I appreciate. So.
Yeah. In the show, the one thing about the comics is they always say Mother's Milk was the smartest member of the boys, but it didn't reflect that. It didn't reflect that. And so I always push for that. Every episode that I get and I read, I would go back and I'd say, hey, being the smartest member of the boys, wouldn't he know this? Or wouldn't he educate his team on this? Or wouldn't he be the one that has already researched this and figured out a plan of attack? Like, he needs to be a coach, And while Butcher is the wild, rambunctious one, if he doesn't have somebody that can reel him in, this show is over in season 1. Because he would have gone to war in season 1. And that's what ended up happening is my character, out of everybody on the team, was the only one that could stand up to Butcher. And by standing up to Butcher, in different ways, whether that be mano a mano, or whether that be as a friend, counseling him in the right direction, it became Butcher's conscience too. And it became the voice of the audience, the eyes and voice of the audience watching it. So it was finding Mother's Milk's new relevance in the boys that may not have been as clear in the books.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Hi, I'm a pretty big fan of your character in The Boys.
Thank you.
And I think you have a great, interesting, complex portrayal of him. I was curious, what was it like portraying a character with OCD in the show?
So the best compliment that I get with this show is when people who suffer from OCD and who've been diagnosed with OCD come up to me and thank me for not making it a joke. Thank me for not making it a punchline. A lot of times when we see OCD portrayed on shows and movies, it's usually a very stereotypical version. but we never explore
The different
the
types.
traumatic source of why the OCD exists. You know, it's OCD is more of a symptom as opposed to, you know, a diagnosis. It's a symptom of something else underneath the surface. And so it was important for us to really show that. And because we have a series that takes place over the course of seasons, we don't have to do it all at once. We can take our time with it. You know, so seasons 1 and 2, we discover that he has it. And season 3, we discover why he has it. You know, and that's where we introduce Soldier Boy, and we introduce Mother's Milk's backstory, and we introduce, you know, when the OCD began. And so it humanizes OCD, it humanizes mental health. A lot of times, mental health gets othered, and it's like, oh, those people over there, they have mental health issues, you know. And if we really are honest, there isn't a person in this room who hasn't experienced some form of trauma. And we all wear masks, trying to cope with it. And in our show, we have the opportunity to remove the mask and show you the trauma behind the coping. And so it's been very important to do that in a respectful way. And I've enjoyed how we displayed the OCD. You know, the first couple seasons, it was a little bit more, you know, all the markers and all the post-it pads and all, you know, everything was like orderly and color coordinated and all that. And the props department loves to decorate on the Snowball's areas because they get to like do their thing, you know, and show how sharp they can be. And then I come in and I rearrange it, like, nah, that's not OCD. I got that. But, you know, we're also able to show the trauma that a lot of people deal with on a daily basis and how brave it is to be able to go out into the world and put on a mask and deal with people respectfully in spite of it. So that's our goal, is to just show humanity as much as we can, both the good and the bad.
Thank you very much. I want
Yeah.
to compliment you on such a great and respectful portrayal of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it, bro.
What's up, man?
So, my girlfriend had a question.
Can't hear you, bro. You got
My girlfriend had a question.
There we go.
Alright, so ask it for you. She wanted to know how filming works on this Christmas.
This Christmas.
So, the question was, how was filming on This Christmas? For those of you who haven't watched This Christmas, it is a cult classic. Usually they play it every Thanksgiving. It's a Christmas movie I did. And it's a movie where if you haven't watched This Christmas, show of hands, who has not seen This Christmas? Okay, so there is a scene in This Christmas that is very, very memorable. I'm not gonna tell you what the scene is. Those of you who've seen it know the scene. Those of you who haven't seen it, when you see it,
You'll know.
you will know the scene. It is a Christmas movie starring Loretta Devine, Idris Elba, Chris Brown, Lauren London,
That movie was-
Columbus Shore.
That movie was packed.
So many people are in the movie. Very, very good cast. And the way that scene came about was, so I will say this about the movie. I was a cheating husband in the movie. I was a scumbag. And in the movie, in the script, Regina King, who played my wife, crashes my car in the LA River and leaves it there. And she walks away kind of like scorned. And she didn't like that. She didn't like it because she hates that the way that Hollywood always portrays a woman who's been cheated on is scorned. And why why do we always have to portray the ending of that relationship the same way, where the woman is now angry and bitter and scorned?
Angela Bass.
She wanted to flip it and show that the woman ended up winning that scenario. She got him back, and he lost in more ways than one. And so she was arguing with the studio head who liked that ending. And she said, look, let me give you an example of what happened to a friend of mine. And so she tells the story of what her friend did to her husband when she caught him cheating. And it was that exact same thing. And when the studio head heard the story, he said, that's it. We're gonna do that. That's gonna be in the movie. That's the scene. And she said, no. She's like, these are real people. These are my friends. You can't do that. They ended up getting back together again. But obviously it made it in the movie. And the funny thing was she invited them to the premiere. So the couple that scene is based on actually came to the premiere this Christmas and witnessed it for the first time on screen, watching me and her replay what they did in real life.
When art imitates life.
I say that to say, again, life ends up in a movie.
Art imitates
People
life.
don't realize how much real life ends up in films. It was great. I hated it when I did it, because I was like, at that time in my young career, I wanted to be Denzel. I was like, man, Denzel would never do this, But, you know what? I'm not Denzel. Like, Denzel has done what Denzel has done. I'm doing what I'm doing. And it's a moment for me to say, I've done something he hasn't done. And in some ways, a lot of actors that I grew up looking up to. I mean, I looked up to Forrest Whitaker, Denzel Washington, Samuel L. Jackson, Wesley Snipes. There's a long list of actors that I grew up watching and admiring and looking up to. And it's like, well, they probably couldn't have done that scene the way I did it. So at some point in your career, you stop wanting to be somebody else, and you kind of like accept who you are and what you do, and you learn, I'm gonna do me. And that was one of the movies that taught me that I don't have to worry about what somebody else has done or hasn't done or would do or wouldn't do. This is my career. I'm gonna do what I do, and I'm gonna do it in a way that you're gonna remember it. And this movie came out over 10 years ago, and it's still a cult
Christmas
classic
classic.
Christmas movie.
Christmas classic.
And it is because of that scene. So I'm proud of my work. It's funny because now when you look at Mother's Milk and the stuff they put them through, it's very similar. It's almost like, my showrunner always says, he's like, you don't realize how funny of a straight man you are. He's like, it's easy to find people that are funny, like comedians and people that, he's like, it's hard to find a straight man that's funny.
What does that even
He's
mean?
like, you're one of the funniest people to see bad stuff happen to. He's like, you really look like you are not happy. I was like, because I'm usually not happy. He's like, well, keep not being happy because it's great. He's like, that film helped me grow as an actor.
Thank you very much. All right, folks. Well, I think that's about time for tonight. Yeah, that's it. But really appreciate you coming out. Everybody give a big hand for Laz.
Thank you.
And if you could, and everybody up to the front. We want to get a group photo.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Be back for the next one in a few.